This has become a very large point of contention between the city and the constituents here. So my office has fielded several hundred calls over the past couple of weeks up to the lead up of what's going on right behind us. Immigration has become a humanitarian crisis in this country. This isn't about not wanting to help folks. This is about acknowledging that this is a crisis led on by bad policy, a crisis that we, House Republicans, voted on H.R. 2 earlier this year, and House Democrats and Senate Democrats refused to advance a resolve. So now we're dealing with this here. 1,000 migrants fit into tents behind us. The same tent structures that we have out in El Paso, Texas, where I visited several weeks ago. Same exact structure. So to think that this is now here in, quite frankly, I call this a little the suburbs of New York City. We're in Queens here. We like our little quaint lifestyle. We come here to raise our families. We come here for a better life, for quality of life, away from the hecticness of Manhattan. Now, let's be very honest on what's going on with these policies. These policies are led on by House Democrats, Democrats in the White House, Democrats in the Senate, the same Democrats that the liberal elites from Manhattan vote for on and on and on. Now, they don't want this in their backyard, so they dump it here, where we obviously voted Republican. That's why I'm your representative in Congress. So it begs the question of, why can't we just house them all on Park Avenue, 57th Street, where the folks are voting for these policies? Why isn't Chuck Schumer fixing the issue? Why is it that we have to bear the burden of thousands of migrants all across our neighborhoods? The mayor is in Israel right now, running away from the fact that this crisis is now increasing, with the fields being authorized by Joe Biden and Kathy Hochul to house more migrants, and there's no resolve, there's no sight and end. We need to close the floodgates. We need to stop this. This is common sense, folks. We're taking resources away from middle-class Americans here in New York City and taking away Randall's Island, a recreational space for their kids. We've passed H.R. 2. H.R. 2 has to advance in the United States Senate. This is the Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden border and migrant crisis. Chuck Schumer, our United States Senator and Senate Majority Leader, needs to do something about it. He's from Queens. He's from New York City. He has to do something about this, but we stand here with this migrant crisis right behind us, and there's no end in sight. The folks behind me live here. This is their neighborhood. They moved here running away from the hecticness of New York City and the thick of Manhattan. This is what this is about. This isn't about hate. This is about compassion and common sense. And we need Washington, D.C. to listen to us. I stand here not as a United States Congressman. I stand here as a citizen, a resident of New York's 3rd District, and I'm asking you all to cut the nonsense and get to work. Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, I'm asking you to advance H.R. 2 immediately in the United States Senate to get the job done. President Biden, I call on you to speak to your senator and make sure that you guys pass the bill. Enough is enough. We're not going to deal with this anymore. I will do everything in my power. We'll be conferencing with the Speaker and the Majority Leader to see what we can and what we should do to make sure that not one single dollar of federal funds is diverted and put to spend in this center. We cannot support this. We can no longer finance. And with that, look at the policies that I put out. I'm very common sense when it comes to policy. I don't think that we should. There's no way, and maybe some people will disagree, but there's no way you can tell me we're going to deport every single one. What, 6, 7, 8 million people? That's not feasible. We can't afford it. But we need to close the floodgates. We need to answer and figure out the issue that's already at hand. We need court dates. We need more judges in the immigration courts to be able to address this issue, because it's out of control. It's spinning out of control. And it's, look, when you're taking Americans' turns out of resources and giving them to foreign nationals who, as I like to say, came in through the back door, you're doing a disservice to Americans. We have homeless veterans. We have homeless people through the wazoo in this country. Homelessness is a crisis in America. And yet we're taking in more people and diverting resources and diluting resources away from Americans. That's the message there. That's the issue at hand.
Where do you stand on expanding?
I think we should not cheapen the process, right? So what you're asking is, let's just give them all blanket work authorization as they're in process. Oh, because that's going to burden less the government. The problem is you're going to create competition with American citizens who are already struggling to put food on the table and to find jobs. So you want to add millions of people to the workforce and take away from Americans. Again, we're taking away from our own, from legal residents, from American citizens, people who have a right to be here. I'm not saying asylum seekers don't have a right. I'm compassionate to asylum. I'm compassionate to immigration. This country was built on immigration. If you look behind me, we're a very diverse group. This isn't about being anti-immigration. It's about being common sense to the capacity, to the state of our country at where we are today. It's unsustainable. We can't afford it. Actually, there's nothing humane about it. And quite frankly, if you look at the pictures that they're giving us, people are sleeping in line. There's no, I mean, what's there to look at other than the fact that it's a disgrace? That's how, look, you want to help these folks? That's not how you help them. This isn't help. This isn't compassion. This is actually inhumane to put people in these conditions. I've heard that excuse many times over. Oh, they said they were going to kill me if I didn't move. That's not asylum. I mean, that's a dispute, a civil dispute that should be resolved through the courts in these countries. So my message is, stop coming. There is no magic money tree here. There is no magic house here. You're not going to walk in and have your life change. You're going to go through hard times. And if you have small kids, you're going to put yourself and your kids in harm's way. I always stress this. Do not make the journey. I don't want to wake up and see kids floating upside down with their lives lost in the Rio Grande or families killed in container trucks. That's inhumane. That's a disgrace. That hurts me. It's hurtful to see. And the process as it stands, we just need to expand the system so that we have more judges, more agents to process them. We're not changing the process. We're not changing the policies. We're just expanding the personnel. So like I said earlier, take the resources out of the IRS and put them in USCSI, put them in CBP, put them in ICE. That's where the money should be. That's where the crisis is. It's not raising taxes and being tax hawks and collecting and arming the IRS. That's not where the money should be going. Last question.
Congressman, have you spoken to the White House about this issue? And when was the last time that you spoke to President Joe Biden or anyone in the Biden administration?
I think I answered you that question earlier. I have not spoken to the White House, other than probably getting White House passes for my constituents to visit the White House, but I have not had any meaningful conversation with the president. I have not had any meaningful conversation with the White House. I leave that to leadership. That's their role. I follow the guidance of the leadership in Congress. Mayor Adams can start off by calling it a state of emergency and stop taking them in, right? He can suspend sanctuary city status immediately. That's incumbent upon him. He's the executive of the city. He has the power to do that. And you're very much more optimistic than I am, and I believe the folks behind me, to think that the migrants are going to stop coming and that the border is going to be dealt with. It's been 2 years of the Biden administration almost now, and we haven't seen a resolve. We haven't seen an inch towards resolve. So the reality is, not here. Put it where people are voting for. Put it in Jamal Bowman's district. Put it in AOC's district. Put it in districts that are overwhelmingly voting for these policies. Because last I checked, New York's 3rd District voted for border security, voted for a conservative to go represent their values. So put it in the Democrat districts and leave the Republican districts out of it. That's what it comes down to.
Here, here.
There you go. Let me do this one.
All right, Congressman.
There you go. Rich, can you hold it?
Save us, move!